Well, Na'eem Jeenah is a senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. Na'eem, good afternoon to you. I do appreciate the time. What started this? How did this start this week?
Well, we're talking about the events this week on Tuesday in particular. I mean, it's now become a kind of tradition that in the month of Ramadan, when Muslims are praying and fasting, that there are regular kind of Israeli military and police attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque. This has happened for a good few years now. I think that Tuesday was particularly brutal compared to previously. But the issue around it is that in the month of Ramadan, Muslims generally kind of spend additional time in the mosques than they usually do praying. And so at Al-Aqsa Mosque, after the night prayer, which finishes probably about 9-10 o'clock at night, many people stay over for hours or sometimes till the next prayer, the pre-dawn prayer the next morning, praying. And this is a tradition all over the world. You'll find it in South Africa as well. So worshippers do gather in the mosque at this time, but the Israelis have banned that nighttime worship at Al-Aqsa. The second thing about it is that many of the people who are there at the mosque come from the West Bank and often have to go through numerous checkpoints before they get to the mosque. And so instead of going back home and facing that humiliation and returning, they just stay over in the mosque for the night. Tuesday, as was usual, Israeli soldiers went into the mosque compound, first started clearing out worshippers while they were praying in the courtyard of the mosque, and then went into the mosque with tear gas, stun grenades, etc. As you said, number of people were beaten up, 400 people were arrested. I think about 150 are still in detention now, but 400 were originally arrested. They prevented medics from getting to the injured people. One medic was beaten up. And it's I think, taken the Israeli Ramadan attacks on Al-Aqsa in a sense to a new level this year.
The Al-Aqsa Mosque, I mean, an incredibly important site for people of the Islamic faith. As you say, it's almost become a tradition. But to go in like this, I mean, the Israelis would know it's a huge provocation, and they must have known there would be a reaction from the Palestinians too.
Yes, of course. I mean, people attacked anywhere, let alone in a place of worship, will defend themselves unless they have a very warped sense of kind of passive resistance. I mean, I don't know that they were able to actually defend themselves on Tuesday, but they will defend themselves, and there would be other repercussions, including international. There's going to be a debate in the Security Council at the UN, for example, on the issue. But I think that we are now looking at a new Israeli government that is much more brazen than previously Israeli governments have been. A new government that's much more right-wing, and the extreme right-wing part of that government, knowing that it has a kind of leverage over the Prime Minister that previously didn't, and that is that the Prime Minister wants their support in order to pass laws that will protect him from the courts, personally, because of corruption charges, etc. He doesn't want this coalition to fall apart, because if it does, he'll stop being Prime Minister and be more vulnerable to those cases by the judiciary. So, for example, another way in which this brazenness is showing, for a few years now, there have been a couple of one or two MPs from the United Torah Judaism Party, an ultra-right-wing Haredi Ashkenazi party, that has proposed a law that would make particularly Christian propagation illegal. It never went anywhere and was usually just dismissed as soon as it was proposed. This year, commentators in Israel are actually saying that there's a chance this law might pass. And, people who talk to others about Jesus or about Christianity could be locked up. Why? Because Netanyahu needs their support in the Knesset, and so he might be a bit softer on it. So with the postponement of the judicial bills, this one has also now been shelved to a later date. But the fact that it's been shelved means that it could happen. So we're looking at a very new, a very different kind of internal Israeli situation. And often Israeli prime ministers have used security as a way to bolster their own or boost their own support, and attacks against Palestinians to do that. Jerusalem symbolically is a good way of winning that kind of support for an Israeli prime minister.
It's amazing that this is going to happen. I mean, what options do the Palestinians have? I suppose not many, really. I mean, a few rockets into Israel, perhaps, but that invites then another response from the Israelis, and so we have the tension escalating once again.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, there were a few rockets on Wednesday morning that were fired from Gaza into Israel, and that, in a sense, follows what happened in 2021. When the attacks by the Israeli army in neighborhoods and then Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem resulted in firing of rockets from Gaza, and, a good few days that whole thing lasted. But the attempt there by Palestinians was to show that they were united, whether in Jerusalem, Gaza, or whatever the case is. But in this instance, a few rockets were launched. The Israelis then attacked homes and factories, etc., in Gaza, and it kind of stopped. Palestinians really don't have many options. I mean, the Palestinian Authority, Palestinians don't trust anymore to represent their voice. In fact, they're regarded more as being in cahoots with the Israelis in terms of security than with the Palestinians. The matter is going to the UN Security Council, but it's, the usual tradition there is that the US will veto anything that's too critical of Israel. But right now, the United States is also somewhat unhappy with the Israeli government, particularly because of those judicial bills that they wanted to pass, etc. So there is a possibility that there might be a resolution at the UN Security Council. But even that, I mean, Israel is in violation of, more than 80 Security Council resolutions, and is able to do so with complete impunity. So what options do the Palestinians have right now? Not much.
Na'eem Jeenah, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it as senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection.